with all the experiences that I've had with the call maintenance and the racetrack and the work we were doing, I can't leave out a couple of things that were really obviously God. It was so beautiful. I remember one time we were living right on the literal border of New York and Pennsylvania. As a matter of fact, when I left the house, I was in New York. I had to go into Pennsylvania to get out the end of my driveway and turn around and come back into New York to get to the racetrack. And the racetrack was about 4 or 5 miles away from where I lived. Right next door, bordering our property, was the owner of the land, the guy that did all the land moving, and he had all the equipment, the heavy equipment. Howdy Jones was his name, a really, really super guy, and it was a nice sized company. But one thing that impressed me so much about Howdy, he was so caring about other people and so loving. And I remember, because we lived right on the side of almost like a mountain, and in the wintertime, people would have a hard time getting up there. And I would hear them spinning their wheels and trying to get up the mountainside. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I would hear diesel engines start up. And that meant that Howdy got out of bed at 2 in the morning, went out on the roadway, and pulled the people up the mountainside so they weren't there all night long. And I wondered, boy, how many believers, and I don't know for sure, but I'll tell you something, he sure had all the attributes of a believer. How many believers would get out of bed at 2 in the morning and get dressed and pull somebody up the side of the hill, the mountain, so they could get home and then go back? And I just love this guy. And I remember he had such a sense of humor. He had his own airport, and he had 2 airplanes. And he was just a great guy, always laughing, helping people. And I told him, I said, I'm going up and get my daughter Tracy. She's coming down with me for the weekend. And he said, well, listen, why don't you just hop in the plane and we'll fly up and get her? So I said, boy, that would be a surprise. So we flew up to Marcy. And really, Marcy is a little airport that has no tower. It's not manned at all. And I was asking, well, why wouldn't we just go to Oneida Airport? It's closer. And so he didn't answer me. And we just said, nah, Marcy's all right, he said. So we landed at Marcy, picked up my daughter, and flew back down. Now, these are small planes, four passenger. We flew back down and landed at his airport. And we were coming out of the hangar and talking a little bit. And I said, why wouldn't you really want to land at Oneida? It was so much easier. He said, well, I don't talk about this, but I don't really have a license to fly. And I thought, oh boy. And he'd been flying for like 20 years, all right? And he's a country boy and had 2 planes and just flew around. And it was so neat. And one day, I remember we were at the track, and he had to drop the payroll off to his men. So he said, well, I'll just fly over. And he flew over and landed the plane on the track. It was still dirt and all that. It is dirt anyhow, but it was still rough. And the plane hit a little bit of a hole. It tipped it up, and he says, hey guys, hurry up, take your money, and I got to get back to the hangar, And pretty soon, man, the engine just sped up, and off he takes again. But you never met a nicer guy that just had this love for people. And these were some of the little experiences that God dropped in just to make life a lot lighter when we were doing the track. And I'll tell you one that was a little more serious that God dropped in, and boy, did he ever come in beautiful. I'll tell you that in just a minute.